Hello, you guys. Welcome to another video. I almost did not film it today. I almost did not, but we're here. I may as well just do it. Let's just get through this video. Side note, I have been having a very challenging first couple days of Neptune retrograde. Saturn went retrograde towards the end of, what month were we? June? And then Neptune went retrograde yesterday. So there's two planets in retrograde. They're both retrograde in the sign of Pisces. And of course, if you know me, you know I am mega Pisces. There's so many planets in my birth chart that are in Pisces. So I'm heavily Pisces influenced. And so huge planetary transits. I'm very sensitive to feeling all of it. So it's almost like Mercury retrograde on steroids, literally, but we're getting through it. Anyways, I'm here. We're filming this video. I apologize. This video is a couple days late. That is pretty much one of the reasons. Just too much happened last minute, and I just can't find time to just sit down and record a video until now. So here we are. So if you're curious to hear about how my reading went for the month of June, and also to listen to the TBR lineup that I have for the month of July, please keep watching. We have our iced water today. This is a brand new spooky cup. This is going to be my Halloween hunting cup that I will be taking along with me. The slime cups are fun, but they don't keep the ice cold, and it is super hot. We're having a mega heat wave this week, so I picked this up at Michael's for like $10, and I love it. It is a dupe from the Stanleys, so I love it. And it's definitely doing the job. I could hear all the ice cubes in there. Make sure you have something to drink, something to keep you hydrated, because it is hot out there, you guys. This week it's going to be 112. 112. Oh my gosh, I look so awful. I just feel so out of it right now. But anyways, I'm tired. I'm sleepy. It's actually, what time is it? It's 2 o'clock. Okay. Let's talk books. I feel like I had a successful month of June, even though I didn't really care for two of the books that I read. But I do feel like I did have quite a successful month anyway. So I started off my month of June with this book called This Delicious Death. I started it on the 1st of June. I finished it on the 5th of June. So it only took a couple of days. It was a young adult read. I gave this book 3 stars. I almost gave it 2 stars, but I gave it 3 stars because it was funny and like fast. Like it kind of kept going, like it, you know what I mean? Like it's a young adult book. So there was constantly something being happening. It was a build up kind of a story, but it was also very predictable, and it felt too juvenile for me. I kind of just lost interest after a while. I would have to say like midway through the book, I was like, I'm kind of over it already. It wasn't really grabbing my attention, so that's why my rating was a little bit lower for this book. But it was funny, and it was interesting, and a different take on your typical zombie books. And I love zombie books. I would read zombie books all the time. So it definitely was a different take on the zombie thing. But not really it was not for me. It was it felt too young for me. My next read is My Darling Dreadful Thing. I started this one the next day, so the 6th of June, and I finished this one on the 18th. So this did take me a little bit longer than I wanted to get through the book. That was mostly my fault because I was not keeping up with my usual trying to read a certain amount of pages per day to keep me on track. That said, this was a 5-star read for me. I really, really, really enjoyed this book. It has romance. It has kind of like character development, growth. It talks about mental illnesses. It talks about maybe some taboo topics depending on the person, like your stance on things. But it's a love story and it's also a ghost story. So it has like all of these different elements from all different types of genre, and it's mashed into one, and it is a really good ghost story, pretty much. I love the ending. I loved just the development of the character, the main character, and I feel like I finished it wanting to cry. I had tears in my eyes, not quite the tear drop, but I did have watery eye. So it was sentimental and it did get to me, but yeah, it was a really good read. So was it spooky? It has elements of spooky, but I think the romance and the development of the character and the mental illness and all of that kind of like overrule the spooky factor. So if you're looking for like a scary horror romance, it's not quite it. So that was that. And then I picked up Sub-Zero. I started this on the 18th of June and I finished it on the 23rd. This was a smaller book. It was like less than 200 pages. The writing style is like really simple. It's almost bad writing style. Like, I hate to say it, but it was just not the best. I gave it 3 stars because it was kind of repetitive. Like, I feel like once you got through the first initial like discovery of this thing in the ocean, I won't give spoilers, I promise. It's kind of like you get the repetitive, the storyline, the repetitiveness, and then the book puts you in the mindset of this creature, this thing. And to me, it just was like repeating the same stuff over and over again. It was like, I feel like there wasn't any originality in this book. It didn't really grab my attention. I was actually bored and I felt like I just wanted it to be over. So not my favorite. It had potential and it just didn't do it. And then lastly, I read Older. Started this on the 23rd of June. Finished it yesterday on the 2nd of July. It did take me a little bit longer than I wanted to finish it, but this one I was actually trying to stay on track reading. I was like reading like 50 pages a day because this book is actually over 400 pages long. So I was reading 50 pages. I think I like screwed up a couple days where I didn't read at all, or there was a couple days there where I wasn't on track. But for the most part, 50 pages per day. This book is romance. It has a taboo topic. There is a little gentle warning, like a reader's warning at the beginning. So anyone who may be take offense to a topic or maybe triggered by the topic, you'll know right when you open the book what it is about. I love taboo topic books. I love all of the things that are uncomfortable to talk about. I love reading that stuff when it comes to fiction. I don't really care too much for slow burn romance, but this book is slow burn romance. It is pretty much, if the first half of the book, so the first 200 pages, is the slow burn. After the middle point, so by 200 pages, you get to the kind of like the next, like the second half of this build up. And it was worth it. So in my opinion, it was worth it. If you are not good with slow burn romances, I would urge you to hang in there for the first half of the book. It's kind of necessary because it really creates this relationship between like your feelings for each character that are involved. And it kind of helps you kind of just feel yourself like rooting for different characters. It is a little spicy. There's some spice. I've read worse. So for me, it wasn't that bad. But for the book that it was, the topics that it was, with the subject matter, I really enjoyed it. I liked the ending. The ending was pretty, like I expected it. It felt a little rushed towards the end. I will say that. I think that's the thing with slow burn romance is like you're waiting for the thing to happen And then it's like once it happens, it's like a roller coaster. Like you're like the whole story just picks up, and then before you know it, the book is over. So I kind of hate that trope when it comes to romance books, but this one, I'm glad I stuck it out. So that was a 5-star read for me. So I read a total of 4 books, not bad. My goal is usually 4 to 5 books a month. And yeah, I feel like I did pretty good. Let's talk my TBR for July. July, we are heavily into the pit of summer. July to me is the month where you really see the weather really start to heat up. And it's kind of funny how this week we're personally having a heat wave here where I live. So to me, July is barbecues. It is like ice cold water, slushies, ice cream, movie nights. What else do I think of when I think of July or summer? I think of, pool parties or, all of those things. And so when it comes to my TBR, I wanted to read books that gave me the feel of campfire or slasher. I think of like slasher and campfire. I think of water horror, underwater horror, deep sea horror. I think of romance. I think of just all those kinds of things. So I was trying to find books that reflected that energy. I don't know if I did very well picking them, but some of them do. Some of them are pretty good. And like I said, I have to say this every single time. Just because I put a book on my TBR does not mean it is going to be the book that I read. Sometimes I add books to my TBR later on. Sometimes I have a change of heart. And, I just I leave it open. So here's what I have for July. Summer Camp for Slasher Victims. This book screams all of the spooky summer energy that I am looking for. It is a summer horror book. It is about people who go to a campsite or a campground. It says, "Welcome to Camp Safe Woods." A summer camp dedicated to repairing the spirits of those who have faced the unimaginable. So people probably who went through a slasher situation, but I think someone amongst them may have some ill intentions. So it sounds really good. I love the cover. It just drew me in, so I'm giving it a try. This is the first one I'm going to start to read today. Next, I have Jaws 2. So this is my deep sea horror pick for the month. I read the first Jaws. I think it was last year, actually. I read Jaws. And so I thought I should just, pick Jaws 2. I was able to find a vintage copy used on thrift books. So that is also going to be my pick for this month. I'm for sure going to read this one. These other ones are kind of iffy. Like I'm just throwing them in the mix because they sound good. Leather and Lark. This is part 2 to the Butcher and Blackbird that I read. I read that one a couple months ago. Butcher and Blackbird, it's like a, how do I explain it? It's a horror, but it's like a romance and a very like sexual. It's a naughty book, okay? It's a naughty book. It is not for everybody. And so I really want to read this one. I think, hopefully it'll be good. I think we're going to get into a different character this time in this story. So we shall see. But Butcher and Blackbird, like, as much as it was entertaining and it was spicy and it was a quick read, I also didn't like it either because it was like too much for me after a while. I don't mind, like I said, I don't mind spicy romance. I don't mind really like sexual content and just like, stuff that is just ridiculous when you're reading it. But sometimes if it's like every page, I just get over it. I'm over it really fast. So we'll see how this one goes. I think because it has the element of murder and like horror, that's kind of what keeps me into it. But if it was just a pure spice romance, I don't think I could last. I don't think I could handle it. Okay. Another one that sounded really good is Everything We Never Said. Love Makes Us Do Bad Things. So I believe this is another young adult kind of like an unfortunate turn of events type of a book, like a romance, but a sad romance. I don't know. It sounded really good. And yeah, I'm going to give it a try. I actually really like the idea of throwing in maybe one or two young adult books in my TBRs because I loved reading young adult when I was a young adult. And in my 20s, like in my late 20s, I had a hard time getting into the fiction, like the adult fiction books. So I was still heavily reading young adult. But now that I'm like in my late 30s, I'm really strictly just horror and like adult fiction. But every once in a while, I do get pulled to a young adult book. So the only problem is they just feel so young to me now. But we'll see. This one, I like the subject matter of this. You have like a dead best friend. You have like a forbidden romance kind of thing situation. So we'll see. It sounds interesting. Speaking of young adult books, I also decided to reread Tricks by Ellen Hopkins. So Ellen Hopkins, she wrote a lot of problematic, taboo topic books for young adults. And I devoured all of her books back in the day when I was a teenager. I love her writing style. All of her books have like this kind of like funky way of how she tells a story, and it's like very poetic. And the whole book is like that. So when you see her books, they're always super chunky and huge. But when you open up, you realize how little there is per page. So I could devour like a single one of these books in a day or a couple days. So I really wanted to reread the Tricks series. This one, there's Tricks, and then the one that comes after is Trafficked. And that's because I read this one after a little bit later when I was in my 20s. And I remember not paying much attention to it because I just wasn't in the headspace for it. So I devoured like all of Ellen Hopkins' earlier books. And so I don't really remember what happened in this series. And I have all of the books stacked in my bookshelf, staring at me all the time in my bedroom. So I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to reread this series, like this little series, to refresh my memory and go through the experience of reading Ellen Hopkins' writing, because I just remember how heavily impacted I felt by her writing style and just the topics and stuff. It's just so good. So gonna give that a try, get into it again, and I'm really excited for it. So there's that. So that is my TBR for the month of July. Like I said, things can change. I could add some new stuff. I could take away some stuff. I'm keeping it very simple. I love that I'm deciding to add in a couple books that I've had on my bookshelf and a couple like older books. I'm trying to keep it open to like a bunch of different things. I have so many new release books that I want to get to, but I feel like I've also been devouring or I've been choosing longer books, and a long book for me is 300 plus pages. So like older was a 416 pages. That's a lot. And I just kind of want to give myself some grace this month. And so I think by adding in, an oldie but a goodie, something simple, and the Jaws 2, I'm kind of excited too. So, just something different. Something different. But of course I have to have some horror in there. So I'm excited. We'll see how these books go. We'll see how I like them. We'll see what else I decide to add to my collection. I have a lot of books that I need to get through, but there's always something good popping up. There's going to be some new release horrors coming up. I think towards the end of this month, and then even in August, that I'm excited for. So August is really going to be another month full of like, I'm hoping the slasher book, I can get my hands on it. And yeah, I have some ideas for that month as well. So we shall see, but that is pretty much it, you guys. I just wanted to talk about the books. I wanted to make sure I got this video out there because I just felt bad that I hadn't posted it. So I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys in my next video very, very soon. Bye, my loves.